In this lesson, I'm going to show you some of the enhancements in Task Manager. To pull up Task Manager, I'm going to right-click on the taskbar in the empty space, and Task Manager is in the list. I can also use Control-Alt-Delete, and that will give me a list, and Task Manager will be in the Control-Alt-Delete list as well. But here, I'm just going to click on Task Manager. I'm going to minimize this Server Manager window behind it. The default view in Task Manager, when you open it on the client and server operating system, is now just a view that shows running tasks, and it allows you to end a task. Microsoft finally figured out that most people come to Task Manager just to close non-responsive tasks. If you want to see the full view of Task Manager, you need to select More Details. So this gives me more of the traditional Task Manager you may be familiar with from older operating systems. Now, to explore a few of the tabs here, one of the most notable changes is the Details tab. If you have experience with prior operating systems, you may remember the Details tab used to be named the Processes tab. One of the issues with this Details tab, if I scroll down the list, all I see are processes by name. A common process is SVC host. Service host it stands for. You will always see more than one. Sometimes you see 5, sometimes you see 25. It depends on what's installed on your operating system as to how many you see. Certain roles you add in, like DHCP, will add in another SVC host. One of the issues, I have no idea what these are directly linked to from here. I always say, if I was an evildoer, and I was going to develop malware, I would make sure all the processes associated with it were actually named SVC host, because people are accustomed to seeing more than one and they don't even give it a second thought. A better view, if I go to the Processes tab here, if I scroll down the Processes tab, I can see all the applications I have running. I also see the background processes, which I only have 10. If I scroll down the list, I'll see Windows processes. So this tells me that I have 29 Windows processes running right now. These are the SVC hosts that we saw in the Details tab. What's unique here is I can expand any of these, and it tells me why it's actually running. So I can see this instance of the service host is for the DHCP client, Hyper-V time synchronization, and a few other things. So instead of just giving you a process saying, this process is running, and this is how much processor and memory time it consumes, it says, well, this process is running, and this is why it's running. These are the services associated with it. Now, from here, I could even right-click one of these services and stop. I could open the services console. So the services I see referenced here also show up here in Task Manager on the Services tab. Well, this gives me a list of every service on my machine, the status of the service, if it's stopped, running. Any of these services, I could right-click, and there's an option to stop, start, restart. If I want to fully manage services, I can open services here, and that'll open the Services console, and that'll let you change things like the log-on account and additional configuration options. Now, I also have the Users tab. This just gives you a list of all the users that are logged on, and it also shows you all the processes that a user actually has. It does give me the ability to disconnect a user account. The only time you normally use this is in relation to remote desktop. I'm locally logged on to my Windows 2016 server right now. Well, that means 2 other people could actually log in through remote desktop to this same server. If you were to log in through remote desktop, your sessions would actually show up here. So I could come here and I would see, user 1, user 2, and that they are logged in through an RDP session. One of the problems with remote desktop, people will often click the X at the top of the screen and they disconnect the session, but they don't actually log off or end the session. So the session keeps running, keeps consuming resources on the server. Well, this is one way for me to come and log off those disconnected sessions. But not extremely common that you really have to use this Users tab here. The only other tab is the Performance tab. Now that gives us a view of our subsystem components: CPU, memory, Ethernet. If I look at the CPU, I can see my real-time utilization, speed of the CPU itself, the total uptime for this machine I'm actually on, and that'll run up to, days. So I can see that. I can also see how many sockets this machine is using, virtual processors. Now the machine I'm on right now is a virtual machine, so Task Manager even tells me, well, yes, this is a virtual machine that I'm actually on. On the memory side, it shows me my overall utilization. Now the machine I'm using is a virtual machine, and I only have 2 gigs of RAM allocated to it. So it shows me that 2 gigs of RAM and how much of that is actually in use. The bottom also shows me the max memory this actually supports, so 1 terabyte of RAM. If I go to the Ethernet, this shows me overall throughput for the network adapter. Now at the moment, my machine is not connected to anything on the network, so it shows me that it is send and receive both 0 kilobits per second. It also shows me my IP addresses. So I can see the IPv4 address of this machine is 172.16.0.6, and I can see my IPv6 address. This FE80 address is a link local IP version 6 address. So a few enhancements there.